Feminine energy is so expansive and it incorporates many, many things. And it's not all about this kind of prissy, very agreeable energy that we all get told we should be embodying. So, I wanted to say first of all about where I get my ideas about feminine archetypes from. I'm somebody who likes to sit down with themselves and imagine scenarios and imagine what I would act like if I was embodying this kind of thing or this kind of archetype. How would that manifest for me? What it would look like if I was a queen? How would I act? What would I say? And in doing that, I've discovered that there are archetypes that I really, really resonate with, and also archetypes that I kind of go, whoa, I don't want anything to do with that. And that's not necessarily a good thing. And when you learn more about feminine archetypes, you can kind of realize, aha, that's actually the one that I relate to. And it's okay to relate to those different ones. And, I've done a lot of reading around the subject and by no means an expert, but there's a lot of writings. Carl Jung has a book called Archetypes. It's worth reading. If you read any ancient texts, religious texts, any writings about the masculine and feminine dynamics, or any mythology, like Greek mythology, Roman mythology, even Bible stories, you will find that the goddesses and the gods, they actually represent archetypes within us. That's a really cool thing. There's a writer that I found called Joan Shinoda Bolen, and she wrote a book, I think it's called 7 Feminine Archetypes, or the archetypes within every woman. She compares feminine archetypes to Greek goddesses, and she also takes into account the stories of those goddesses from mythology and also the god or gods that those goddesses are paired with. And that kind of generates ideas about different masculine and feminine dynamics, because they're not all the same, right? And there's the characteristics of those archetypes or goddesses, and there's also the shadow sides of those goddesses and archetypes, and where they can become a little bit unhealthy. So I want to have a look at that as well. And I would say there are countless archetypes, kind of ideas within one's head about this is how this should look. There's some feminine energy coaches at the moment who are kind of creating, or they've identified their own archetypes, very modern ones. So you've got like hot girl, lucky girl, all these new ones that are popping up. And when we think about those, we kind of know who they are. It's like we already know them, and we can embody them. So it's very interesting. It's a fascinating subject, and it's not like, oh, there are these archetypes and that's it. It's not that. Like I said, feminine energy is so expansive. It's constantly expanding into new ideas, new concepts of what feminine energy is. So I'm going to go with some of the traditional ones, but the lesser known ones. So the first one is the lover. All right, so when you think about the lover archetype, what do you think of? Straight off the bat, I'm thinking of sensuality, pleasure, maybe sex, playfulness, joy, being in the moment. Sensuality, I would say, though, and perhaps a more mature version of the maiden. Jean Shinoda Bolen, she paired the idea of the lover archetype with the Greek goddess Aphrodite. Now, Aphrodite is fertility, sex, abundance, all of that. Now, I would imagine that there's a lot of women who watch my channel who identify with the lover archetype. Now, I myself am strongly identified with Aphrodite, the lover. Where it can go wrong is women strongly embodying their lover archetype can end up being promiscuous, looking for validation in men and in her sexuality, using her sexuality as leverage, abusing her sexuality, leaking sexual energy. The answer to that is not, I'm just going to completely leave that archetype at the door and not be embodied in that and not give any energy to that. And, you know, they try and start acting like the maiden, all innocent and sweet. And the lover isn't innocent and sweet, and that's okay. But there are healthier ways to embody the Aphrodite energy. So if you find yourself having your opinion of self based on what other people think, or if you find yourself chasing after pleasure, chasing after sex, chasing after men, you may be more embodying the shadow side of the lover archetype. So a healthier way to embody the lover archetype is to really practice being present. The lover archetype is all about sensual pleasure, so it is about the present moment. But healthy ways of doing that is to grooming, self-care, you know, nice rituals with candles, physically lovely things. Like, for example, I'll get a little bit personal. I used to like having a glass of wine or 3. Now that was me embodying my lover energy, because I am a ruminator, but I also desired to be in the present moment with a still mind, but I couldn't switch the rumination off. I found that drinking alcohol would help me to do that. It would help me to switch off the rumination and be in the present moment. So more in touch with my lover archetype. However, that's not very healthy. So now I don't do that anymore. What I do instead is I like to do self-care rituals. I like to keep my house full of nice things. I like to adorn myself. I like to adorn my house. I like to have flowers in the house. Lovely smells. Smells is a big one for me. Cooking meals that are very aromatic and pleasing to the senses. Also sexuality as well. I'm not going to really go into that, but being in a polarity relationship where you can experience really, really good sex, that's another really good way of embodying the lover archetype. So if you are single and you find yourself kind of running after the attention of men and the approval of people, or going after pleasures that are maybe not that great for you, replace those things with clothes shopping, making the house look really nice, aromatherapy, lots of nice baths, candles. Just really pay attention to what your surroundings look like. You know, taking yourself out on little dates, allowing men to take you out on dates, just really basking in that kind of luxurious, the finer things in life. And that really helps you to be in the present moment and to have the senses stimulated. So if you do relate to the lover and, you know, you're trying to relay something to a man about your feelings, it may work better for you to focus on sensuality. For example, if the man is wanting you to go over to his house, but you have decided that you want to be taken on dates, all right, you want to do dating better, embodying the maiden archetype, which would look like, I don't feel safe, I prefer this, I prefer to be taken out on dates. That sort of very innocent, well, I just prefer it when men take me out on dates. It might not feel like the real you. Try coming from the lover perspective instead. More like, you know, when you took me out on that date and we had that lovely food, It was just so gorgeous, and I was so looking forward to doing that with you again, because I love to eat really great food. You know, maybe kind of relate it more to that sort of sensual side, and that might feel like it resonates a little bit better with you. Well, it probably wasn't a great example, but if you want to spend some time getting into the lover archetype, you will find out what the lover type things are to say anyway. So you can dance, sensual dancing. I find that rock music actually gets me into it, that like the sort of passionate, like really dopamine inducing music. And if you haven't got a drinking problem and you can have a glass of wine without it turning into a whole bottle, then a glass of wine might do it. Just something that gets you more embodied, more in the present moment, and more in touch with the sensuality of life. You know, spend an hour or two just, okay, lover archetype, sensuality, put some feminine energy music on. There's loads on YouTube. Do a feminine energy meditation. Very telling way of knowing whether you're strongly identified with the lover is if you are going after the sensual pleasures of life, or approval seeking, or trying to be in the present moment but finding it hard. Just don't cast those ideas aside completely and replace them with something else. Just replace them with the healthier version of that, and just see if that doesn't feel better. Here's another example. Because I'm strongly identified with the lover, I feel 20 times better about myself if I adorn myself, right? And I'm not saying I don't look perfect, and my hair's usually a bit of a mess and all of that. But just for me, just putting some lipstick on, just attending to, I'll put my jewelry on, something nice, just tidy my space and have some flowers. It's absolutely the difference between night and day, the way that makes me feel, because it's a natural thing for me to have nice things around me and for me to feel like I look nice. If you're identified with one of the other archetypes, it might not be as important to you, and that's okay, but we'll have a look at those as well now, and let's see. And like I said, you might strongly embody one of them, or it might be several, or it might be sometimes it's this one, sometimes it's that one. I have a few different that I'm strongly identified with, and then others I have made conscious efforts to get more identified with them, or I try to get more identified with them when it's appropriate. For example, the mother energy. But anyway, we'll get on to that. The mystic archetype. This one is very interesting. The mystic archetype is linked to the Greek goddess Hestia. Hestia is a non-verbal, virgin, introvert goddess. She's not personified, all right? So she's represented in Greek mythology as more like an energy rather than an actual goddess that's been personified. She also likes to take care of her house, but it's for different reasons to the lover archetype. So it's not about adorning the house, it's about getting tasks done, right? So are you somebody who likes to clean? Or are you somebody who wishes you like to clean, but you find it really, really hard? You can help yourself there by embodying the mystic archetype. So the actual ritual of being present with housework, like, right, I'm going to turn my attention to cleaning the kitchen and just doing it because it needs doing, and having some quiet time whilst you're doing that. So it's kind of like directing your mental energy into a physical task and working methodically to get it done. The mystic is very strongly identified with your North Star. Your North Star is like, what's your life's purpose? See, this is something I suffer from as well. I don't know why I'm here. I don't know why I was put on this earth. Everything's meaningless, you know, that kind of nihilistic attitude. Spend some time trying to find out what your North Star is and go deep with it, okay? So you might start off, well, it's to have a great career and make loads of money. Well, why? Well, it's about creating feelings of safety for myself. So feelings of safety is something that you want to cultivate. Okay, so how can I do that aside from making money? How can I do that right now? Create feelings of safety for myself. How can I tap into that energy that already knows that it's safe? What are my values? What are my true values? Am I living my values today? If I believe in kindness, am I being kind today? She's also a virgin goddess, which means Hestia, the mystic, she's not paired with a Greek god. She goes through life not wanting to be with a man and never being with a man. There will be some... I strongly believe that not every woman is either destined to be with a man or it's not her true desire to be with a man. I believe that some women have the true desire to actually remain on their own. Is that you? You know, it's okay. It's okay if you don't want to be with a man. But even if you don't fully identify with that, where's that mystic part of you? Cultivate activities, hobbies for yourself that are just for you. Because I'm with a man now, and you know, and I identify strongly with the lover, and also the queen, but I also identify with the mystic. So I spent a period of time kind of like, and I wasn't thinking this consciously, but I realized all my hobbies had fallen by the wayside. I was like, I'm not interested in that anymore. I just want to focus on my relationship. This is it now. And actually I was rejecting the fact that I had the mystic archetype in me going, excuse me, introvert, which I really do have a lot of introverted tendencies, you know, but I don't want to be in my own head. So that would swing too much that way, but actual activities, methodical things that I'm interested in or things that need doing that I can just hyper focus on and shut the world out. And that just honors that part of me that does want to just hyper focus on something. So what are your hobbies? And if you like cleaning, do it mindfully. If you're finding it hard to clean, try doing it from the angle of, I'm honoring my mystic by doing this. I'm going to just focus on cleaning. I'm going to see what thoughts and revelations might come up for me. Greek depictions of Hestia show her as generous, kind, a bit of a homebody and in modest clothing. So kind of the opposite to the lover in terms of modest clothing. So that might be a day where I don't adorn myself. I don't concentrate on making the house look beautiful, but I do something maybe a bit more gritty, like, you know, cleaning, stripping the floors, something that's not so decoration based, but it's a little bit more of graft, and I'm not all dressed up for it. It's so nice when you realize that there are all these archetypes that you relate to a larger or lesser degree, and you can go down that path with them for a day, and then the next day you can go down another path with another archetype, and it just opens your world up. And you don't have to box yourself in so much. The mystic archetype likes to feel oneness. So you might get into meditation and things like that. But it's very homebody orientated rather than being out in nature. It's kind of like being at one, at home, generosity, kindness, and introvertedness. So the shadow side of that can be too introverted. I know when I'm being too introverted because I start ruminating, right? So the best way for me to be introverted and to honor that side of myself is to do an activity on my own. So, you know, I like to get into my music, producing, mixing, things like that, hyper focus on it for the whole day. But it's calming my mind, but it's giving me a focus as well. So it's introvertedness, but it's not spiraling into unhealthy introvertedness, which can kind of make us feel too thinky. The huntress archetype, also known as the wild woman archetype, also known as the Greek goddess Artemis. She's also quite self-focused, likes to do her own thing, but it's kind of outside rather than inside. So she might like walking in nature. The huntress to me has a lot of masculine energy because she's a huntress, right? She's providing her own food. She's finding the animals herself and she's hunting them. She doesn't need a man for that. In Greek mythology, Artemis is one of the virgin archetypes, like the mystic, so she isn't paired with a god. So it might be the part of you that wants adventure, you want to go traveling, you know, you want to go and stay in a little village on your own in China and eat street food and just do your own thing and not answer to anybody. So it's kind of, it's adventurous, but it's from the point of view of independence. Artemis in Greek mythology is seen as like a protector of women. I think she protected women from being attacked. You know, so it may be women who are kind of feminists, or they stand up for other women. That might be like the huntress archetype. Again, we get shamed for being a feminist or for standing up for other women. And it's like, yes, that can go into an unhealthy realm, but defending women as a woman is an honourable thing as long as it's done from a sort of healthy viewpoint. She might be physically strong. You might be into working out, you know, as well as going off traveling. The huntress is hard to win over because she's a virgin goddess. So there may be a part of you, or it may be a big part of you that you resonate with, that just you're like, I don't want to be vulnerable. You know, I'm okay by myself. I can do everything by myself. I'm enjoying life, and I don't want to be vulnerable with men. And that might, you know, you might come a cropper with that. That might be your struggle, opening up to men. You know, so you can practice feeling statements there, you know, just bring your feelings to the table just in small increments. You know, if you're feeling that kind of, I don't want to open up to this guy, just start small. Oh, I'm feeling really happy today. You know, just start to just voice a little bit the feelings. You don't need to go over the top. If you're strongly identified with the huntress archetype, you need to honor that too. So there will be a need for adventure. So work out at the gym, do your yoga 5 nights a week, go traveling on your own, honor that archetype. The next one is the sage. So she's represented by the Greek goddess Athena. So if you're kind of heady, you love researching, you love debating, you're intellectual, the sage is an intellectual, right? Also, if you love teaching and if you have a lot of wisdom, that's the sage archetype. What I'm doing now when I do my YouTube videos, and you know, I do the research for the videos as well, that's me embodying my sage archetype. You know, it satisfies that part in me of kind of bringing information to the table and helping people, but also leaning on my own wisdom as well, like the experiences that I've had, things that I've learned, things that I've observed, knowledge that I've come to sort of my own volition, through my own experiences, kind of, you know, whittling all that down and then handing it to other people so that they can be helped in their lives. The problem comes in with the sage is when she just uses her wisdom, knowledge, observations, all the heady stuff that's been going on and goes bleh, and it's to, you know, prove a point, get one over, win. So many women are identified with the shadow side of the sage. All right, is this you? Researching, you know, if you're with a man who's not meeting your needs, You research and research and research. You're up until 3 a.m. Then you go, aha. And you go to him and go, right, I've figured out what your problem is. You've got an avoidant attachment style. You're this, you're that. And you psychoanalyze him. And he's like, what? And it does nothing. It absolutely just kills the vibe, because you've come at him in your sage energy, but without the wisdom, right? It has to be tempered with wisdom. So the knowledge, the research, all of that is fine if it's balanced with the wisdom. And the wisdom is like, is this the right thing to do? Is it the right thing to say? Am I coming at him with my emotions packaged into this kind of paragraph of research that I've done? If you find yourself kind of analyzing, ruminating, say to yourself, right, I'm going to bring wisdom in. What does wisdom tell me? Oh, that I can actually do better than this, that this guy isn't actually for me. That quickly sort of knocks it all on the head. If you're a ruminating person, or you're a bit of a researcher, it's the sage. So you just need to make sure it's tempered with wisdom. And often that is the wisdom to know whether to actually share this information or not. Also, if you're identified with the sage energy, you probably find yourself in your head more than in your body. So feeling statements will help. And, exercise, teaching others, but trying to help them, have the highest value of, I'm trying to help them. And we never give help where it's not wanted. It really does need the wise side as well. It does need that wisdom. If you're just vomiting information at people, or you're trying to tell people, or you're just ruminating, the wisdom there would be, oh, I'm ruminating, this is not good for me, it's going to cause anxiety, I'm going to get up and move, I'm going to go for a walk. Always call the wisdom in. And I think the sage, more than anybody, is kind of annoyed with the feeling statements, the I feel icky stuff, right? So it's just about having empathy towards that, and having empathy towards yourself. If you're not ready for I feel icky, and I don't think I will ever be ready for that, it's okay to not say that. You can intellectualize those feeling statements, and you can do it in a nice way with wisdom and compassion. So rather than, for example, I would embody the sage energy. If I needed to say something like, that's really giving me the creeps, I don't like that, it's making me feel icky, you can sage that up, right? By kind of going, I've noticed that I'm having this reaction in my body that kind of feels grossed out. So you're not fully embodying the feeling. You are sharing your feeling, but it's more from a sort of observer point of view. The problem is with me, I start talking and then my head just goes off in tangents. Okay, and also, don't be too identified with the intellect. Find other things that define you rather than just your intellect. So what other archetypes can you embody today? I really do want to make sort of a really organized video about the archetypes, and then how to embody each one more, and then the shadow side. But it's really hard for me to do organized videos because all of my ideas come out actually when I'm already talking. So even though I have notes this time that I've been looking at, I'm talking and the more ideas are coming out, and it's like, it's too much, Anyway, so they're like the lesser known archetypes. The other ones, the more commonly known ones, are the maiden, queen, and mother. I've touched on those in my other videos. Somebody in the comments on that poll said they wanted me to touch on the maiden archetype. So I will do that just as a little side note, because a lot of these ones are kind of juxtaposed against the maiden. The maiden, you can think of that as kind of your inner child. The maiden is identified with Persephone. The Greek goddess's name is Persephone. Feminine, innocent, childlike, lots of feeling statements. She's Snow White. She's waiting in her castle for a prince to come in that sort of very innocent way. I think because I'm strongly identified with the lover archetype, which is not an innocent archetype in that sense, the maiden kind of makes me feel like I'm falling short in some way, like I'm not innocent and childlike. I've been tainted by the world, and I kind of resent the maiden energy because she doesn't know the horrors of the world yet, and she hasn't experienced being taken advantage of by men and things like that. But actually, it's probably a good one to get in touch with because you know, we don't want to have a bad attitude towards men. We do want to give them the benefit of the doubt. We do want to come at it with a sense of innocence, as if we've never had our hearts broken before, you know, and not carrying the baggage of the last relationship into the next one. You know, that could be work that you could do to get in touch with the maiden archetype, starting with a clean slate and thinking the best of the man. And maybe there's fear for me around getting taken advantage of if I get in touch with that archetype, you know. Maiden is very inner child. So what were you into when you were a kid, you know? You can regress a little bit, you know, play some video games, do something that you used to love when you were a kid. And also very focused on seeing the best in men and wanting the prince to come and sweep her off her feet. But I will say about the maiden, if she wasn't being treated like an absolute princess and a guy wasn't her prince, she would quickly spot that. So the maiden does know what she wants, and her standards for how she's treated are very, very high. I think she can have a fear of abandonment. Here we go. Okay, this is interesting. See, I'm realizing now that maiden is the one that I'm kind of, I don't want to even identify with that one. And yeah, maybe that's to do with a fear of abandonment. And I don't identify as somebody who has a fear of abandonment, but I do definitely have a very active avoidant streak in me where I will avoid rejection by not engaging. And maybe that's kind of the shadow side of the maiden archetype. So maybe I should look at putting myself in situations where I could be rejected, but, you know, sort of just leaning into that and seeing what happens. I don't know. I hope that was interesting to somebody. Now that I've got 1,000 subscribers, I did promise a live stream, so I'll be doing that soon as well, which would be terrifying. Maybe that's how I will get in touch with my maiden energy, and I'll do the live stream and just open myself up to rejection. All right, thank you. Bye.